The legendary Triceratops in Jurassic Park. One of the first dinosaurs to ever grace our screen, Dr. Alan Grant's favourite dinosaur. Yet very little is known about this animal and its existence after the events of Jurassic Park. We know it's sick. Why was it sick? Whatever happened to it after the storm? Did it get better, roam around the paddock? Did it ever run into the T-Rex? Or did something truly dark happen to the Triceratops? Well, I have all the answers to all them questions, and the real truth on what happened to the Triceratops may completely shock you. So hold on to your butts, grab yourself a GAMERSUPPS, and let's get into it. Now, during the tour of Jurassic Park, Alan Grant spots what he seems to see in the distance as some type of dinosaur. Now, as you do, you'd get out of a moving vehicle and go and investigate in a dinosaur-infested park, and that's exactly what he does, and the rest of the crew follow. This leads us to the scene with the very sick Triceratops. Now, at this stage, they obviously know she is sick, but they don't know why she is sick. They theorize that it was West Indian lilac that she was eating, but Dr. Jerry Harding says no.
We know they're toxic, but the animals don't eat them.
And she seems to get sick every 6 weeks. Now, in the film, it is never fully explained why she was sick. We see her, they leave her there, and that's the last we ever see of her. Ah! We even know that Ellie decides to leave the trike there, and it's never mentioned again, but it is fully explained in the novel, but it doesn't explain what happened to it after this scene. That's something I'll go into later. Now, like the movie said, they know she wasn't eating the West Indian lilac. It is poisonous, she wasn't outright eating it, but there is some truth to her digesting this plant. You see, the reason she's getting sick every 6 weeks is because they complete a migratory circle every 6 weeks, and at a certain point during that circle, they eat stones. Many animals do this because it helps with buoyancy in water, helps digestive tracts. Some dogs actually used to do it, and the Triceratops would do the same thing. It would take a big scoop of stones in the dirt and eat them. Unfortunately, the West Indian lilac, berries, plant matter, whatever it might be, was also infused with these stones. So when it was eating the stones, it was eating the West Indian lilac, and because it was eating these stones every 6 weeks, she would get sick every 6 weeks. That was never explained in the movies, and I've just explained it for you now. But what it doesn't answer is what happened to the Triceratops in the movie after the scene, and the same thing in the novel. That isn't explored, because she can't just disappear. I mean, the power goes out, any dinosaur roaming round, there's a T-Rex roaming round. Does she recover from her sickness? Does she ever make it off the island? There's so many questions. Now, what is extremely interesting is in one iteration, Jurassic Park the game, we know is considered soft canon, showed the Triceratops to get much better, and then, believe it or not, actually encounter Rexy. Now, don't get me wrong, this is a great scene and is definitely fan service, because throughout the entire franchise movie history, there has never been a T-Rex and Triceratops battle. That in itself is quite tragic, but in Jurassic Park the game, that actually happens. The sick Triceratops meets Rexy. But at this stage, she's no longer sick. But I would like to point out that it wasn't 100% confirmed that this was the same Triceratops. The T-Rex and Triceratops have a massive battle. The trike actually loses a horn, and during the fight, the Hardings run into the Triceratops maintenance building. And at this point, this is the last we see of the duel, so it is unknown who won the fight. And that will build into our story later on. But again, it's worth pointing out that this iteration isn't canon to the Jurassic World movie franchise. Now, the Triceratops is one of only 4 dinosaurs to appear in all 6 films. The others obviously the T-Rex, velociraptor, and surprisingly a parasaur. Now, we know why the Triceratops was sick, but we don't know what actually happened to it after this scene. I would also like to point out that it was actually planned to have a scene in the movie which would have explained this in a matter of 30 seconds, but they decided to cut it out for sake of time. We would have had Ellie basically picking up a stone and then coming to the realization after chatting with Grant that it was eating the berries while it was eating the stones. But even if they did include that, it wouldn't answer to what actually happened to the Triceratops after this event. Now, according to some InGen documentation, one, in quotation marks, lame Triceratops died during the incident in 1993, and it involved the escaped Tyrannosaurus Rex. Now, by lame, it's implied that they had a physical disability. Now, the sick Triceratops didn't have a physical disability, although she was ill. But we do know of the Triceratops in Jurassic Park the game who did have a disability. She had her horn broken off. Now, we never see the end of that fight, so we never 100% see who definitively won. But we see the T-Rex again, unscathed and uninjured, and we don't see that Triceratops again, leading us to believe she had perished in the fight. So this documentation to me is referring to that Triceratops, not the Triceratops we see in Jurassic Park. But that doesn't mean that her fate is any better off. Let me continue to explain. But just before I do, quick reminder, keep yourself hydrated, get yourself some GAMERSUPPS, use the link on screen now and code SHADOWS for 10% off, and they've got a new flavour launching this Friday. Keep yourself hydrated, go and do it now. Now, as we know in Jurassic Park, the tropical storm is approaching. The trike is heavily tranquilized and she's somewhat aware of the humans and only had limited reactions to their presence. An animal of that size, it'd probably take several hours for the trank to wear off. So after the humans, including Ellie Sattler and Jerry Harding, vacate the area, a few hours later she should be back up and on her feet. At this point though, all the fences would be down, she would be able to roam around any paddock she likes, very much like a T-Rex. There'll be no other predators on the island, apart from velociraptors, who would presumably be able to take down a trike, so she would be relatively safe. Now this is where things get really interesting, because if you've seen any of my other videos, you will know that in 1994, there was a cleanup operation which took place on Isla Nublar. People went back to the island, checked to see what dinosaurs were still alive, and plans to contain them. Now I'm not going to go into that in depth on this video because it's kind of irrelevant, but there is one point I'd like to make, and they do come across the trike, or a trike for that matter. Unfortunately, this trike had been killed. It had massive gashes on its side, and the only predator capable of giving it these gashes was the T-Rex. Now again, it's worth pointing out this could be the Triceratops from Jurassic Park the game. It doesn't specifically say anything about the horns, whether it is missing one horn or not, just says about the gashes in the side. It's also worth pointing out that 13 Triceratopses were created by InGen in their compound on Isla Sorna, and after a few months, 3 Triceratopses were taken to live on Isla Nublar. They all lived in their own paddocks, so there was 3 Triceratopses present during the film. Now if we examine the 1994 cleanup list, which shows us all the dinosaurs which were accounted from the island, it shows the amount which were there in 1993 and the amount which was there when they came back a year later. Now as you can see, the dilophosaurus population remained the same. Brachiosauruses, there were 6 in 1993, 5 in 1994, meaning 1 had died. Now the extremely interesting part, the Triceratops list. 3 were there in 1993, just like I said, they transported 3 across, and 2 were there in 1994. It's assumed that the sick one was killed by Rexy. Now, we know Rexy had a battle with the Triceratops in Jurassic Park the game. It is unknown whether she killed the trike or not, but we assume she did. Unfortunately, it's not canon. So even if we assume that she had killed that trike rather than the sick one, it's not canon. We can't use it, unfortunately. So we could only assume that Rexy, after breaking out of her paddock, roamed round for a few hours maybe, came across the trike, who was probably still a little bit stoned at this stage, and proceeded to attack and maul it, killing it in the process. Rexy would definitely have a much easier time taking on this trike than the other 2, and it makes sense, but I'd like to point out one huge fact here. While it's clearly being suggested that she died during the incident, it is not 100% known for certain, because let's look at this. Her date, the cause of death, therefore are not officially known, so we cannot 100% say for certain the trike which died was the trike we've seen in the movie, although it is heavily likely but not 100% concrete. I mean, in my heart of hearts thinking about it, the T-Rex probably taking on a stone trike probably was her, but I hate to say it, but it does seem extremely likely that was the Triceratops' fate, eaten and killed by the Triceratops. But what do you think? And what actually happened to the baby velociraptor which hatched out of the egg during the 1993 incident? Wouldn't have just disappeared, right? And if you want to know the answer to that question, I have the video on it on my channel. I'd like to thank my YouTube members which are on screen now for keeping the power on in the park, and especially DVM Wannabe 1018 and our brand new member who's just joined, William. Thank you guys very much. I couldn't make these videos without you. So thank you. And if you've enjoyed watching this, hit the like button, subscribe right now for more content. And can I solve all Jurassic Park related mysteries? You bet Jurassic can. Catch you later.